Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing the 5 Elites of Wei Let's Talk Lore series with episode 4 of Zhang Liao's arc, titled Becoming a General. Now last time we ended as Zhang Liao was sent to the Xu province after the Guandu campaign to quell local rebellions. After a month of fighting against dissidents and bandits in the northern part of the province, Zhang Liao found himself joining in General Xiahou Yuan's siege of Donghai in early 201. At the time, their opponent was a bandit leader named Chang Xi, who controlled much of the Donghai commandery with his sizable bandit force. Now, typically, when bandit forces reach such a scale, local governments tend to offer them military positions as a means to turn them from unruly bandits to government troops. And while they might still be rather unruly and definitely corrupt in their roles, it was still seen as a more cost-efficient method to deal with these large bandit forces. And this was very much the case with Chang Xi, as he worked with Tao Qian when Tao Qian was governor in the Xu province, and then with Liu Bei, Lu Bu, and then Cao Cao. But after Liu Bei returned to the Xu province and denounced Cao Cao, Chang Xi rebelled alongside Liu Bei. So this time, after Cao Cao claimed his victory at Guandu, there was intentions to make an example out of Chang Xi. However, after a month of sieging, Xiahou Yuan and Zhang Liao made little progress against the entrenched bandits under Chang Xi, who took up defensive positions atop of the Sengong Mountains. And with supplies now dwindling, Xiahou Yuan had little choice but to start the preparations for a retreat. However, at this moment, Zhang Liao approached Xiahou Yuan and shared a theory that he had about Chang Xi's intentions. Zhang Liao stated that in the past few days, whenever he was out on patrol, inspecting the siege on the front lines, he would notice Chang Xi staring back at him across the line, and that fewer and fewer arrows were being fired by Chang Xi's troop every day. Zhang Liao believed that this was a sign of hesitation, and that Chang Xi probably doesn't want to be just a bandit lord in Donghai for the rest of his life, and was hoping that we can extend him an olive branch first. And given his past history, Zhang Liao felt that there was a good chance that if they could offer him a government position on Cao Cao's behalf, then Chang Xi would surrender his troops willingly. So to test out his theory, Zhang Liao sent an envoy to Chang Xi to arrange a face-to-face meeting on the front line. During this meeting, Zhang Liao shared his admiration for Cao Cao with Chang Xi, praising Cao Cao for his abilities and, more importantly, his willingness to reward those who will fight under his banners. And with Zhang Liao being a prime example of this, Chang Xi agreed to surrender once again to Cao Cao. And to cement the deal, Zhang Liao followed Chang Xi alone back up the Sengong Mountain, where Zhang Liao would be greeted by Chang Xi's family as the siege of Donghai would finally come to an end with Chang Xi's surrender to Cao Cao. When Zhang Liao returned back to Xuchang to report all this to Cao Cao, Cao Cao would end up admonishing Zhang Liao for needlessly risking his own life by following Chang Xi up the Sengong Mountain, as Cao Cao told him that great generals should value their lives more. Zhang Liao went on to take Cao Cao's advice as a compliment, as he responded that he was merely representing Cao Cao's will, and with my lord's influence across the land, he was certain that Chang Xi would not dare to harm him. In the following year, Zhang Liao was sent to Liyang to do battle with Yuan Tan and Yuan Shang, following the death of Yuan Shao. For his efforts in these battles, Zhang Liao would be promoted to general who holds the center, or Zhongjian Jiangjun. And when the attacks on Yuan Shao's sons first subsided in 203, Zhang Liao and Yue Jin were tasked with moving civilian populations of Yin'an to south of the Yellow River. But this temporary peace was just a ploy by Guo Jia to remove Cao Cao as this shared external threat for Yuan Shao's remaining sons, and soon enough, with Cao Cao out of the picture, the fighting between Yuan Tan and Yuan Shang took center stage in the north. This infighting would go on to create new openings for Cao Cao, and in February of 204, when Yuan Shang marched out to campaign against his older brother Yuan Tan, Cao Cao was able to launch a new offensive campaign that quickly put Yuan Shang's capital city of Ye under siege. Zhang Liao would participate in this siege that took over 6 months, and by the time the city of Ye fell in August of 204, Cao Cao would go on to grant Zhang Liao independent command for the very first time, as Zhang Liao would be put in charge of attacks on the Changshan Commandery and the Princedom of Zhao to the north, while Cao Cao's main force would swing east to deal with Yuan Tan's remaining forces. After defeating Yuan Shang's garrisons in the north, Zhang Liao would also help facilitate the surrender of many former Black Mountain bandits in the area to Cao Cao's banner, before returning back east to Bohai to help Cao Cao finish off Yuan Tan. And following Yuan Tan's death, Cao Cao continued to rely heavily on Zhang Liao, as Zhang Liao once again was entrusted with his own independent command and was sent to the Qing province, a former stronghold of Yuan Tan, to reclaim the area after Gongsun Du had seized some of the territories through naval attacks. So, from late 205 to early 206, Zhang Liao campaigned across the entire northern coast of the Shandong Peninsula, defeating remnants of Yuan Tan's troops as well as Gongsun Du's assigned prefect, Liu Yi, as eventually the entirety of the Qing province would fall under Cao Cao's jurisdiction. And when Zhang Liao returned back to Cao Cao's side in Ye, Cao Cao would personally welcome Zhang Liao outside the city gates, as Zhang Liao was given the honor of riding into the city, sharing the same carriage with Cao Cao. At this point, Cao Cao would go on to promote Zhang Liao to the official general title of Dangkou Jiangjun, or the general who sweeps the bandits. As war was a never-ending affair at this time period for Cao Cao, Zhang Liao had no time to rest, as in the second half of 206, Cao Cao once again entrusted Zhang Liao with independent command to strike south, this time at the Jin province against Liu Biao's lieutenant in Huangzu. And with Huangzu already struggling to deal with repeated attacks from Sun Quan, Zhang Liao successfully took control of multiple counties in the northern half of the Jiangxia Commandery before being summoned back north by Cao Cao to participate in the upcoming northern campaign against Yuan Shang. Additionally, prior to this northern campaign, Cao Cao also awarded Zhang Liao with the minor nobility title of Du Ting Hou. Now, when Cao Cao was planning for this northern campaign, Zhang Liao originally opposed the idea of Cao Cao personally leading this campaign, as he worried that with Cao Cao away from the emperor and the capital city of Xuchang, the likes of Liu Biao and Liu Bei might utilize this opportunity to steal the emperor. But Cao Cao believed that Liu Biao would never entrust Liu Bei to launch such an ambitious campaign, so even if Liu Bei wanted to, Liu Biao would reject the plan and pull his support from Liu Bei. So, by late summer of 207, Cao Cao personally marched north for Liucheng, and following Guojia's ambitious plan to take the shortcut through the mountains, Cao Cao's vanguards found themselves on the White Wolf Mountain, or Bailangshan, in early August of 207. Their presence was soon detected by the Wuhuan scouts, who hastily reported back to Yuan Shang, and the Wuhuan chieftain, Ta Dun, who never expected Cao Cao's forces to take this back mountain path, responded by sending out all his riders in great numbers to meet Cao Cao's forces on the mountain. Seeing the Wuhuan response, Cao Cao's side now faced a grave decision. Most of the officer corps suggested pulling back towards the safety of their main infantry columns that were leagues behind their vanguard riders, but Zhang Liao staunchly opposed this idea, as he argued passionately about charging the numerous but disorganized Wuhuan lines heads-on. Motivated by Zhang Liao's speech and ferocity, and agreeing with his assessment of the disorganized state of the Wuhuan lines due to their lack of discipline and the hasty nature of their response, Cao Cao ordered to have his own command banner installed onto Zhang Liao's horse, as Zhang Liao would personally lead the charge, while officers Zhang He and Cao Chun would follow with riders on both flanks, and wherever Zhang Liao goes, the cavalry would follow. So in a decisive and almost reckless charge atop of Mount Bailang, Zhang Liao led Cao Cao's cavalry directly into the Wuhuan lines, and utilizing the narrow mountain path to negate their numbers disadvantage, the daring charge routed the Wuhuan side, as the retreating troops farther congested the disorganized Wuhuan lines, and amidst this rout, the Wuhuan chieftain Ta Dun was slain, and with his death and the defeat at Mount Bailang, over 20,000 troops and civilians of Liucheng would end up surrendering to Cao Cao without putting up another fight, as Yuan Shang and Yuan Xi was once again forced to escape farther north, this time towards Gongsun Kang, who would eventually execute the two brothers as a means to demonstrate his own loyalty to Cao Cao. And with that, the north now fell completely under Cao Cao's control, thanks in a large part to Zhang Liao's bravery. And Zhang Liao's fame and legacy was forever cemented on that day, as even Tang scholars and poets would elevate Zhang Liao to the level of Wei Qing and Huo Qubing in terms of his prowess against the northern nomads. Now, with the north secured, Cao Cao turns his attention south towards the Jin province, and naturally, Zhang Liao, who is now proven to be one of Cao Cao's best generals, will certainly follow. So to find out what roles Zhang Liao played during the Battle of Chibi and the subsequent battles against Sun Quan, come back next time, as we'll continue our story from here. Now, hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!